Welcome. Great. Thank you. Well, I think my topic tonight was the reincarnation blues. And really should have a saxophone accompaniment by Greg Butler. You know, I make up these program titles way in advance, and then comes the day and I think, oh my Lord, what was in my head then? But reincarnation is a really fascinating subject, and I'll begin a little bit with my own experiences. Long before I heard of Baba, when I was in my teens, really early teens, I began to have some very strange experiences of myself in past lives, and that was really the kick or the plug or the push that got me started reading basically Oriental philosophy, because the idea of reincarnation in most Christian theology has literally been suppressed. It was taught in the early church. You can go back and read the early church fathers if you're into it. It was taught in various Gnostic groups, Origen, the father of the church. And then at this famous Council of Nicaea, it was thrown out. It was voted on and thrown out. It's like a fact of nature. It's like voting on gravity. You don't believe in it, so you chuck it out. And yeah, I'm being attacked from the rear. Which is, when I found that out, I thought that's really humorous. Baba did explain, because he was asked why in the Judaic religions, which count as Judaism, Christianity, and Mohammedanism, reincarnation is only subtly hinted at now. And basically it's because Baba said that the cultures and the people of those times when he appeared as avatars, Jesus, Abraham, or Muhammad, the people really had no background in that cosmology, the idea of reincarnation. It would have been too much of a shock. But obviously to close ones, he must have revealed some of the esoteric truths about reincarnation. And if you go back and read, for example, in the Bible, there are hints like, as you sow, so shall you reap. The mills of the gods grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly small. And then, of course, Jesus refers to himself, before Abraham was, I am, or I was Elijah. And then the famous sentence Nicodemus asked, then should a man be born twice out of the womb of his mother, you know, because Christ said he must be born again. We've all heard of born again Christians, but I think they've got the wrong idea. Yes, you will be born again and again and again. And that's when Christ said, you know, I was Elijah. So he must have, we know the Bible texts are very limited and questionable in authenticity and all that, so he must have had some inner teaching, esoteric teaching. And the same in Sufi teaching, which is the esoteric side of Mohammedanism. They also hint at reincarnation, but they only hint. There's a famous poem by Rumi about, I was a stone, I was a bird, I was a tree, and now I am man, and I will become God. That's the gist of that poem, which hints at reincarnation. And after a certain level, Baba says, of development, you do recall past lives. Or you may just accidentally, I would say, also flip. You know, the needle skips the track, and you get a little bit of memory. I think we've all had these experiences. As they've done some research lately, a lot of scientists and psychologists have been interested now in reincarnation. Because of the culture, you see, let's say a child says, oh, I remember being Chinese or something, he's laughed at, you see. And whereas in India or something, they wouldn't. And there are many examples of children in an Oriental country who say, yes, I used to live in this village, and my husband was so-and-so, and my mother was so-and-so, and they've taken the child there, and the child is shown all knowledge of the past. in very authentic detail. I have quite a few stories in my library like that. And of course, in Tibetan Buddhism, they even choose their teachers by having the child who is found to be the reincarnation of the previous lama, or they call it a tulku, and he has to identify the belongings of that previous monk or lama to become then again the head of the monastery. And there's some really extraordinary documented stories of that. So it depends on the culture whether you're going to acknowledge perhaps some of the feelings and intuitions you have. And we've all had some of them. Even your tastes and preferences or even life patterns can repeat very much of past lives. You may be fascinated with China, love Chinese food, or even certain colors and music, all sorts of things. Some people have actually almost relived a past life. They move to the country where they used to live and get very excited about it, or become scholars. I sometimes think of these scholars that spend their lifetime studying one particular obscure period in history. You almost feel that they are so dedicated to what must have been a very familiar milieu to them. So it's not that uncommon to have reincarnation. I bet if I asked for raised hands here, I'd get a lot of people that have had glimpses. As I said, I did have glimpses, and it set me off reading Hindu philosophy. Basically, Buddhism is the clearest on the subject. Very carefully details what reincarnation really is, what part of you reincarnates, and all of that. It's really an excellent treatise on reincarnation. They take it for granted. And what is reincarnation? Baba has said in his discourses on reincarnation something interesting on fate. Fate is man's own creation, pursuing him from past lives. And just as it has been shaped by past karma, it can also be modified, remolded, and even undone through karma in the present life. Most people have an idea, the word karma now is sort of bounced around a lot, that it's, punishment and doom and predestination and so forth. You kind of get this aspect of karma through rather faulty knowledge of it. And actually the best phrase to explain karma, if you're a scientist, would be the law of cause and effect, or in a sense, bounding back of energy. A good example Baba himself gives somewhere is the ball that you hit against the wall and it bounces back. And if you're a ball player, you know that just the angle that you hit the wall, then that ball will come back to you. Or physics, this first little lesson in Physics 1, they have these balls going here. If it hits this way, it'll go that way. Good billiard player can understand the law of karma very well. Just you hit that bunch of balls, bang, they go this way, that way, the other. And you intuitively figure it out. And this is the law of mass and energy in the physical world. It has its duplicate in the subtle and mental world. And the key to your karma is really in the mental world. That's where it's all stored up. Just like we have some tape cassettes here tonight. Your mind, your ego mind, which is in the mental sphere, stores up impressions, sanskaras from every single lifetime, and it's very orderly. They give you this little simile in some of these books, which I used to read, of a library. Like you go into the library, you have a Dewey Decimal System, okay? You know that volume H32 will be about such and such a subject, and it's all very orderly. You can go in a huge library, and if you know that system, you can immediately pick out that particular subject and book. I used to do that for the Encyclopedia Britannica, so I'm very familiar with libraries. And this is the way all your memories are stored. A memory is, you wouldn't really have any human existence without memory, and the idea of reincarnation is just an extension of memory through time and space. How do you remember even what happened yesterday? You've got to have some system where it's stored and where you can pick out quickly what you need or what you want. Because without memory, you would have no character, no definition, no ego mind, really. So reincarnation is just a word for a segment of time through which you, as an ego mind, have lived and stored all these impressions. And when you drop the body, I'm telling you probably everything you already know, because you've all studied Baba. When you drop the body, you've got this little segment of your one little life with all its memories, like on a film or on a tape recorder. And then you, quote, sort of chew that over or run it through or put it in the projector of memory, and it goes by you, and you have, because you're backing off from it and you're not involved at that moment in action, you have a chance to review what you've done, and hopefully you have some help there to interpret it, but usually not, unless you're pretty much of a student or a lucky person. And even if you're not very advanced, then it just sort of automatically goes into the computer, and it gets sorted out again into this little library, and the very impressions that you've created in this life get sorted into all the others you've accumulated. And then when you have the drive to reincarnate, you have a huge bundle of impressions, but you select out. It's just like when you want to play tapes. You take 3 tapes out of 5,000 and you're going to play those 3 tapes. And that's also, again, a very natural process which drives you to reincarnate and assume a particular place, time, personality, and everything, sex, body, formation, everything, in your next incarnation. Why does it work so logically? To me, that was always so fascinating. But the laws of those inner planes are just as exact as physical laws. We just don't happen to know them. We're not experts, we're not occultists. But they are just as precise. It's the law of karma. And Bob explains that what we're interested in is how he is relating to us and our karma, and how he helps with our karma. We don't have to spend a great deal of time on the law of karma, because it is, in a sense, automatic, mechanical, if you like, in the subtle and mental world. So how do we deal with it? I think Baba makes an interesting statement that the karma will go on and on and on, on and on and on, that you form incredible numbers of contacts, let's say even with just the human beings, never mind other forms of life or actions, but just your contacts with other human beings. Just stop for a minute and think, how many people at this point in your life have you met? From the most casual meeting to the most intimate one. They're just hundreds. I think most of us have just hundreds of contacts. And each one of those comes from the past. Baba said even someone passing on the street is karma. Just someone passing on the street. The cab driver that you hail and it goes by and doesn't stop. Or the man that gives you a 7-Up at the counter or whatever, is karma. That you happen to be there at that moment, at that second, and he's there at that moment, at that second. So, it's an incredible binding. It's like a huge mass of tangled yarn. It's whatever you want to think of it. Flypaper stuck together, millions of sticky tapes all tangled up. And each time you try to undo a bit of karma, you get stuck to some more. Even dreams create sanskaras. The basic way we do accumulate sanskaras is in the body, in your daily life. But even when you go to sleep and dream, then you're creating a sanskara, or working out one. So it is a hopeless deal. I mean, I don't think, even if you, even like I said, when I experienced a few openings or whatever, little shadow plays or whatever the heck you call them, I thought, my God, my association with that random personality goes back 4,000 years, 5,000 years. You know, what am I doing here? I just don't like it. I don't see how I can ever. So that's what Baba says. It's going to be a hopeless thing, even with the best spiritual adding machine. You know, you toad up the pluses and the minuses. The point is, you're only going to get out of this net of karma when it balances perfectly between positive and negative, yin-yang, good, bad, evil, and good, or whatever. It's hopeless without the Master's help. So there's no way to get out without the Master's help. You can be a saint, you can get to be a yogi on X plane or a saint on XY plane, and still be stuck with the last bit of tangles and never get out until a perfect one comes and snips that last bit. And that's where perfect masters or an avatar is totally essential. Meanwhile, if you're not at the liberation point, you still have an awful mess to deal with. And what you do when you meet Baba, and people have met him, you feel that